Welcome to mikegoldengames, and let's upgrade my PC. As you can see in front of us here, we have a few new pieces of components for the PC. Let's take a look at what we got. First up, let's take a look at the Corsair RAM that we got. It's the Corsair Vengeance Pro Series, 1600 megahertz. Currently, I have some puny 1333 megahertz, super old RAM. Next up, we have a new Samsung SSD. It's the 860 Evo. This one's 1 terabyte. I'm running the 860 Pro for my operating system. This one will mainly be for gaming. We'll also be applying some new thermal paste to the CPU since it's been a few years since I've applied some, probably about 2 years. Arctic Silver, of course. A little hard to focus on the GoPro. So what we're going to be doing for this video is, of course, we're going to be installing this. But before we do that, I'm going to run some benchmarks so we can see what the difference, the 1333 megahertz RAM we have currently installed compared to the new 1600 megahertz, which also I forgot to mention, currently I'm running 16 gigs, 4 by 4 gigabyte RAM sticks, and we're upgrading to Corsair 4 by 8 gigabytes RAM sticks. It's a little late. I apologize for that. As for the benchmarks go, it is going to be as scientific as possible, but also these are really real-world results that we're going to be testing. Some of you are probably going to complain that, we're changing out the thermal paste, so that might skew the results in one way or the other. But honestly, if you're going to be upgrading your PC, this is probably the most realistic way you're going to do it. So, let's get into it. So, let's see. We need to remove the RAM first, and then we're going to need to get to the fan. As you can see with this cooler, it's a Thermaltake, what is it, NICC5. It's a little tricky to get installed or to remove because the screws that hold it in down here are covered by the fan. Got to kind of pop these fans out. So actually, let's see, maybe we'll be able to do that. And one thing, before you ever work inside your computer, you always want to make sure you're grounded. So maybe I should remove my watch, make things a little easier as well. But basically just touch the metal of the case while you're working inside the computer. So what we want to do is remove this. There we go. We should be able to get to the screws down there. Once you slide the fans out of the way, you got one screw in the middle there. A little hard to get the GoPro in there. There we go. So that middle screw, you want to remove that one. And on the other side, there's one more. The two other ones are the mounting plates. You don't need to remove those. Now that we got those two screws free, you can see the thermal paste was a tiny bit excessive. It kind of dripped a bit. So we want to be careful about cleaning that up. And the underside of this, take a look at this really quick. It is a little dusty, so I do want to blow this off. That might be another thing that somebody might complain about is, oh, you cleaned the dust out. Again, this is real world testing. Fast lane car. Anyways, the thermal paste actually still looks decent. It's not all caked on, which actually somebody in our Discord, if you haven't checked out our Discord, check it out in the link below. Come hang out with us, talk with us, chat, whatever you want to do. Anyways, I was helping somebody out in our Discord, and he replaced his thermal paste because I had him take it apart to make sure it was good, and it was all crusty, all caked up. It was horrible. This still looks a little tacky. So I'm going to go use a compressed air can and clean this out. Before we apply the new thermal paste to the CPU, since we have the room open right now, might as well just replace the RAM. So let's open the box of new RAM. Again, this is the Corsair Vengeance Pro Series. Top of the line stuff for DDR3. Look at that. I would love to get RGB, but that's DDR4. My motherboard and CPU only supports DDR3. Again, when you're dealing with the components for the PC, you want to make sure you're grounded. So touch the PC before you touch the components. So now to remove the RAM, you're just going to press down on this little tab here, like that. And then you're just going to slide the RAM out. There we go. So you can see this is the old puny RAM. It's 1333 megahertz, and it's, again, DDR3. I got this, I believe it was like 2014 or so. One quick note, if you aren't really familiar with PCs, as you can see, there's a red channel, a black channel, a red channel, and a black channel. Basically, if you only have 2 sticks of RAM, you're going to want to use one color or the other. So say you have 2 sticks, you'll put one in the black here, and another one in the other black one here. So now when you go to put it in, you see the little divider in the middle there. It's a little offset. You want to line that up with the opening on the RAM. It might be a little hard to see on the motherboard, but basically you'll just line that right up with that. It's so dark, I apologize for that. Put the back down and then push the top. Make sure the back snaps in and the front there. Now that we have the new RAM installed, we should put on some new thermal paste. Now you're just going to use a little drop in the center of the CPU. And that should be good. Make sure we have full coverage because the fan cooler is pretty large. Just going to put a few drops around the edge. Got the CPU cooler back on, the fan's back into position, and everything's looking good. Here is the old RAM. Again, this was 4 gigabyte sticks, and I had 4 of them, making 16 gigabytes. The new ones are, of course, 8 gigabytes a stick. 4 of them makes 32 gigabytes. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, again, the 4 gigabyte sticks here were 1333 megahertz. The new Corsair is, of course, 1600 megahertz. Let's slap in the new SSD from Samsung. Here is the back of my case, and as you can see, there are wires everywhere. Try to keep it as clean as possible, but with all these hard drives, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 6 hard drives. All right, so with 6 hard drives, let's add another. Man, look at all those storage slots. All right, so we're gonna just open that up like that, and this tray should slide out. There we go. And now let's take the SSD. I hope this has screws. All right, so I just realized I don't have screws to bolt this down. So we will have to install this at another time. So let's get this thing put back together then, and then do the after benchmarks. Let's take a look at CPU-Z, just so you can see again all the guts of the PC. We got Intel Core i7-4790K. What we want to look at, because the only thing we're really changing is the memory. It is DDR3, 16 gigabytes. The DRAM frequency is roughly 666 megahertz, which you want to double that, which gets you your 1333 megahertz roughly. So that's the current RAM I am using. It's puny, some puny RAM. I got it in like 2012 or so, I think. It's only 1333 megahertz, which the new RAM is 1600 megahertz. And if you're wondering, this is my motherboard. I'm using the Asus Maximus VII formula. Again, I got this thing in like 2014 or so. The RAM I may have got before then, like in 2012 or so. All right, so now that we are back on the PC, everything is up and running. Let's switch over to memory. And all right, so as you can see, it's still saying the DRAM frequency is 666. So basically what we're gonna need to do is go into the BIOS and turn on XMP. It is registering as 32 gigabytes of RAM though, so we know something's working right. So now what we're gonna do is go down to easy mode right here. And then we will just turn on XMP, profile 1, there we go, DDR3 1600, and that should be good enough. If not, we'll have to do a little more tuning to it. Save and exit. Alright, so here we go, overclock tuner, auto XMP, should be good. If not, we may need to take the RAM out and look at the timing. Alright, it looks like it's booting up, so that is some good news. I do apologize for the poor quality because we got the reflection and all that. I really strive to have the highest quality videos, but sometimes you have to have raw, nitty-gritty footage, if you know what I mean. I really do hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Alright, so there we go. Let's switch back over to OBS. Alright, now we're back in CPU-Z, and as you can see, the DRAM frequency is 799.9 megahertz, basically 800 megahertz. Double that, that's 1600 megahertz. So we are running at full capacity for the RAM, and it is 32 gigabytes. So for the first benchmark, we are looking at Grand Theft Auto 5. As you guys know, I do a lot of LSPDFR videos, so my Grand Theft Auto is, for lack of a better word, heavily modified. And for this part of the benchmark, it's supposed to follow the Hummer, but I have, so many mods installed that it seems to have broken it. So, it's supposed to follow the Hummer. It will catch up to it eventually. A little odd that the benchmark itself got messed up. Grand Theft Auto is really odd. It's all random events and everything, random NPCs, everything is randomly generated. So that is really interesting for a benchmark. And the next game we're benchmarking is The Division 2. As you guys know, the Warlords of New York DLC just released recently, so I've been playing this game quite a bit lately. So I hope you guys are enjoying those episodes. If you haven't checked them out, go check out my Division 2 playlist and my LSPDFR playlist if you haven't checked it out yet. Alright, now let's take a look at Premiere Pro. This is a video that I got edited and ready to go, so let's just start the render and see what the render time is. So what I do is go to YouTube 4K, rename the video. This is just a test video, so let's do that. And 1440p is what I try to render most of my videos at. This video itself may be in 4K. Not sure what I want to render it as yet. Render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality. Video is about 31 minutes long, so let's hit export. Alright, so it looks like it's stabilized, so it's about an hour and 20 minutes to render, hour and 19 minutes. Now that we have 32 gigs of RAM installed, let's get this video rendered out and see what the render time is. I just realized I forgot to initialize the 32 gigs of RAM in Premiere Pro, so actually we have to cancel that. We need to go to Edit and then Preferences and then go down to Memory. Alright, let's see. Reserved for other applications. So it actually is automatically using the full amount. Alright, I guess we're good. Alright, now let's get this thing exported and see how it is. So we should be getting the full use out of the new RAM. Benchmark test 2 and 1440p. And render at maximum depth and maximum render quality. Let's export it. And let's see how it works now. Alright, so it hit 1 hour and 17 minutes. It looks like it's starting to actually count down now. We may have actually gotten to the peak, so we'll see. I believe it's about 4 to 6 minutes quicker. Again, I am actually running OBS at the same time as rendering, so when I'm actually rendering a video, it should be substantially quicker. Alright, so yeah, it looks like we are good though. It looks like it is a few minutes quicker. Again, without OBS running, this should theoretically render a lot quicker. Now let's take a look at 3D Mark. We're just going to run the standard TimeSpy DirectX 12 benchmark, not the extreme version. We're going to run the benchmark without the demo. That's just a video. It doesn't actually benchmark anything. And I'm actually not going to record this just to make sure we get the full before and after to see what the changes actually are. So let's get on into it. Alright, so we just ran the test and we had a score of 8370, which is a decent score comparatively. If you look at the website, we could compare results online, but that's not the point of this video. Graphics score 10,104, CPU score 4,244, 14.26 FPS. I'm curious to see if the CPU score will go up. I'm assuming it will. Again, we are using an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti for the Win 3. The CPU is an Intel Core i7-4790K, which I got, I think, in like 2014 or so. Anyways, I am going to go and install the new parts now, as well as apply the thermal paste. It's been a few years since I've added that thermal paste. Now for the final test, 3D Mark, let's go back to TimeSpy DirectX 12, standard, not extreme, and keep the demo off. And now we're going to run it. Again, I'm going to turn off OBS so we get the full results without anything being skewed. Alright, so the final test is in, and it improved a little bit. Not substantial. I mean, I guess, we're still running the same CPU, but we did gain a little bit of points on the CPU. The graphics card actually... The graphics score actually did go up about 40 points, and the CPU score went up almost 300 points. So it's decent, but it's not that substantial. You know what? Whatever. We got 32 gigs of RAM now. What do you want? It's only 1600 megahertz, honestly, so the final score is 8,551. Not too bad, I gotta say.